This finance order. We have a published agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have an agenda. First up on our agenda is the electric vehicle charging rate policy.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. As you know, the city of Lacey currently does not have a EV charging policy. We do have 4 EV level 2 stations out here in the parking lot. We should have the new charge point stations installed roughly 30 to 60 days from now. And with that, we would like to offer a pricing option. So currently, our EV charging stations, we're going to update the 4 out there in the parking lot. We're going to replace them with two port charging stations, and then we're going to add a type 3 station. In that Timberland Library, we're going to add a type 2 station. In the community center, we'll get a type 2 and a type 3 station or level 3 station. In the installation, North Thurston will also get a North Thurston district office will get a charging station, but the pricing policy will not affect them. Once we install the station, that will become theirs. So basically, my research, I looked at cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Lakewood. And we found out that there's 3 different types of methodology. One is free, which we currently are doing. The second is pay by hour. Typically, most stations here charge about $2 an hour. And then the third is consumption based on kilowatt hours. Currently, PSE charges 12 cents per kilowatt. And within the area, most places charge about double that to the customers. Port of Olympia charges 25 cents. And the highest is DES at 39 cents per kilowatt. And then there's also the DC fast chargers, which obviously consume more power. It takes about an hour to charge a vehicle compared to 2 to 4 hours. And the price range is anywhere from 39 cents. And that's with DNR and Olympia. And then there's a charging station out in Loop, which is about 42 cents. The options we propose is one is keeping the current policy, which is a no charge to the consumer. In that scenario with both the charging stations, and what we'll be doing is we're increasing the 4 stalls we have now to 10 within the network. And that would cost the city approximately $41,000 a year in just electricity costs. Option 2 would be to recover the energy cost and the fees associated with charge point. And that would increase the kilowatt per hour from 12 cents to 14 cents. And that's usually just to cover the credit card processing fees that the customers have that we would have to pay for the customers to use the credit card services. And that'd be about $43,000 a year in revenue, and the expenses would be about the same. Option 3 would be recover the costs associated with the terminals, as well as replacement costs. So these charges last about 10 years, and the level 2 would be about $14,000 replaced to be installed. And the level 3 is more expensive, and it's about $140,000 to install. So therefore, the level 2 pricing would be about 19 cents per kilowatt, and then a level 3 would jump up to about 29 cents. And as you can see, and that would still be lower than what most people are offering around here. Another thing is we believe that it should be based on kilowatt because, for example, a car can charge at say if we're charging a flat fee at $2 an hour, they can charge and get up to about 300 miles in an hour. On a level 2, it could take about 4 hours. And if that'd be $8 for the same amount of power they withdrew from the terminal. So that's why we believe the per kilowatt is more fair and equitable to, it's basically being charged for the energy you consume. Whatever option you do choose, we do believe that we should charge an overstay or idle fee. And that is to promote turnover of the space. We're looking at $5 for the level 2 and $10 for the level 3. Because currently we do not charge anything, and basically people just park there all day. So what will happen is once the vehicle hits about 80%, they'll get a notification that they need to move the vehicle. And there's about a 15-minute grace period. And once the vehicle stops charging, then they'll be charged that idle fee.
In that 15 minutes, can they reach 100?
No. Typically what happens is on the EV vehicle, it charges really quick to the first 80. And then the 80 to 100, it's about the same amount of time to get from 0 to 80. So it slows down.
It slows way down.
Yeah,
So if we, and that's probably to preserve the battery or.
yes.
Yeah.
So if we notify them, you got 15 minutes to move your vehicle. And then we start charging them after that 15 minutes, they still won't get the full charge that they were coming for.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, yes.
But
But most, like, for example, Tesla doesn't recommend to charge 100%. They say get about to 80%. And then they'll severely slow the charging rate from there.
It really depends on what you're doing with the vehicle. If you're just around town and do it, charge 80%, it's fine. Only time you charge over 80% is if you're on a road trip and you're going long distances. And then, I don't charge all the way to 100. No one charges all the way to 100% usually, but we'll charge, up to 90+%, 95%,
And
because you need those extra miles.
how many kilowatt hours can you hold?
Well, every vehicle's different. Every vehicle's different.
And some you can get 300 miles out of it, some maybe 100. So it just depends on.
My Tesla right now is the longest. I can get 400 miles if I could charge 100%.
So what I'm trying to figure out is 14 cents per kilowatt hour comes out to what dollar amount at a full charge?
Well,
It depends on the battery size. So typically on say a 60, we'll just, I did a calculation on a 60 kilowatt battery, which is on a small side. It's about $7.20.
Okay.
so I have, my 2 cents here is, I'd like to do the energy, expense, for what we're charging and obviously any credit card expenses. The only issue I'm having with trying to do the recovery for the replacement costs is that we got these chargers through a grant.
Right.
So.
But when we're
what's-
replacing, we won't have
So
a grant,
you-
we'll have to pay to replace
we
them.
may not have a grant, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? That then we'll be back to zero, right? I mean, here's my thing is we're not the private sector. We're the public sector and we're providing a service. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this is to try to provide this service so we have more people using this or have the ability to use this. If we paid this out of our pocket with our, general fund money, I'm all over option 3. We didn't. The people bought this charging station. And so it's my 2 cents
No, I got you.
Is that-
I get it.
is that they bought the system. When it comes down to replacement costs, who knows where things are gonna be 10 years from now, right? I mean,
Chances are there won't be,
there won't be there's no such thing as a level 2 station.
and
probably
we'll be
10 years.
paying for it most likely.
Well,
There probably won't be grants.
Well,
for it
we
in
don't
10
know
years.
that.
Right, but we don't know there will.
But all the infrastructure is already there, bought by the people.
But 140 grand.
We don't know.
replace-
We have
and
no
that's in
idea.
today's dollars, it's 140 to replace at the
We're
rate.
really looking
Those
forward to
prices
that.
are gonna come down.
What we're really looking for today is because ultimately we're going to have to bring forward to the full council and ordinance to set the rates.
Sure.
And we want to do that in time as we are installing those final charger stations. So when they go live, we're ready. And so as the 3 options, as the mayor mentioned, it sounded like he was looking at option 2, which is just recovering the energy usage. But then also, staff recognition, of course, is option 3, because depending on what happens is we want to try to be able to replace those chargers at the time they become either obsolete or used to a portion where they need to be replaced for a more efficient use. Again, the level 2, as you guys mentioned, everybody's mentioned, is about 14,000, 15,000 replaced in today's dollars. And then the level 1 is about 130,000 in today's dollars. And the mayor has the point, in 10 years, 8 years. We don't know what's going to be the new system out there.
That's a huge difference though between the two.
It
I mean,
is.
Is it that much more? I mean,
But it's
what
the
makes
power
it
story.
worse that much? I mean, we're talking
Yeah,
10 times the
It's
cost.
the way it charges.
It's the way it charges.
So basically on level two, you're basically connecting to the car's charger. And then it switches the current over. With level two, it just goes DC all the way through and it bypasses the charging system on the car. It goes right to the battery. So
A lot more
that's how
Oh,
it charges
that's what
faster.
makes it
Way
so
more
powerful.
technology, and then it has to, it's like the difference between the power coming in, it requires so much more. It's like a small transformer or a big transformer, right? Because it's got to collect all that amperage and then be able to get to the car. And so it's considerably more expensive, but
It's a huge difference.
the technology is changing so fast on this stuff,
And then
so.
with the funding for installing these chargers, as they mentioned, yes, there is a federal grant. The total project cost is $700,000. The federal grant covered 500. The other $200,000 came out of the city's RTO street fund to be able to make this work as a method. So there are some local dollars into that as well as the federal dollars to help with this project. But ultimately, we just want to get some guidance. So as we prepare the ordinance, we go to council for.
Well, I say I I don't know where you're at with this.
Well, okay, so if we do charge and we buffer up these dollars and in 10 years, we're sitting on $400,000 and we spend $130,000 for a replacement or whatever the case may be, what kind of plan would we have to make sure that we didn't, keep those public dollars? Because that's what we're doing. That's what we're saying, isn't it? We want to make sure that we don't take public money and just sit on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I don't see, because you remember when the county said, oh, we want to build, a new courthouse on this facility, on this land and blah, blah, blah. And then they never said what their plan was to sell the property and what happens to those dollars. So, they never said what they were going to do with that money. So I'm just trying to figure out in option 3, how do we reimburse the public? Or
If we, and years from now, if we get another grant and we're in the same.
if we over collect and
Those dollars would go into, be earmarked into our accounts for replacement value of charging stations. So that could be either replacing these or adding other charger stations, depending on how things play out. And it's a model that follows all of our capital or all of our equipment, like cars. Every time we purchase a vehicle, we immediately charge our budget or a replacement rate. So that time that vehicle becomes obsolete, we can replace it with those dollars that are reserved up in that savings account. And that would be the same way with this type of facility. We would use that same model. So they wouldn't just go into a general fund and sit there and not necessarily be used. They'll be used for the purpose that's in the framework of the charging stations. And I'll
Just
just
continue.
continue to Troy if there's anything I missed in that.
you continue to circulate those dollars and build a reserve and circulate.
For this
those reserves.
intended purpose,
Yeah.
and a specific purpose.
But we need to replace them with monies there rather than coming out of general fund dollars.
But at some point in time, we would get to the place where we'd be sitting on these dollars for so long.
And if we
maybe
start
a
building,
decade or more.
and you're correct, if we start building up a reserve account that's much greater than our need is, we need to go back and revisit that with council and say, okay, we may need to change the rate structure, we may need to change these things, because we do not want to create a reserve account that just sits there as you're indicating.
So we would have to revisit this in that instance. In option number 2, option number 2, it just kind of seems more of a pass through. Here, whatever it is costing us we're just passing that through.
Except for the
to the
cost
end
of
user.
of replacing the stations, then
Except-
we gotta come up with general fund money to replace the stations.
Maybe.
Because
We don't know
you
that
can't
yet.
count on grants. I mean, we can't budget based on the possibility of future grants that we have no idea whether they'll exist in 10 years. So, I mean, we do this with everything else we do. We build the money, the capital to replace to replace the capital. So to me, the only one that makes sense to me is option 3, but again, that'll be a council decision,
I also
obviously.
I also definitely think we need to charge the overstay fees too. That there's nothing more frustrating than a car that's sitting there that's not charging.
Just sitting there
And
all
you're just
day.
sitting there and you're like, come on, Well,
And we
I
could-
say,
We could charge on any option, by the way. If we go free, we can still charge an overstay.
sure.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, I say we just, we can forward this on to full council for more discussion. Because I think that's, that's where we're at. Like I said, I keep having a problem with this is we're starting at zero. Although we do have some general fund money and
200 grand.
200 grand. So I may be okay where we're, do some replacement costs up to 200 grand and then we sort of at that point, it's like, okay, now we're back to even. Let's see, have some conversations then about the pricing and so on and so forth. Because this stuff is changing so quick. The heavy lift was to get them in place. The actual then replacing the machine. I have a hard time believing it's actually that much. It's that much to actually just replace the machine. Whereas that our cost to get the machine there, those are totally two different things.
It's both, it's the installation and the
Yeah.
machine itself. But like
The
you
actual
said,
cost of the machine is not
like you
143.
said, in the future, level 3s may come down in value. Maybe they go to a level 4 or 5 or
It will
whatever.
be, yeah.
And level 2 will be obsolete.
Yeah.
So maybe we're replacing all the level 2s with level 3s or whatever the current technology
No,
is
it's
at the
10
time.
years from now, we could be on
That's a
level
long
6
time.
or 7.
Yeah. I'm sure that's
And it
gonna
could be-
happen.
And it could be a whole different charging system, but we'd still be able to use these dollars to buy down that
Right.
cost or have a matching fund for grants to replace them too.
Yeah, because even if we were to look at grants, there's still matching funds needed.
And then these funds can also be used for replacement of or maintenance on the machines as well. Because it's about $700 to replace the charging unit itself,
Or the handle.
the hose and the handle. Yes.
Yep, yep,
And those
yep.
need, I assume those don't last the same 10 years as the whole
No,
machine does?
People are really hard on those.
Yeah,
Okay.
like if you look at the ones out here, they're
Well,
held together with electrical
can I
tape.
get a motion to forward this on to full council for?
Yeah, I would move to forward this to the full council for discussion.
Second. And second, to forward the rate policy for charging electric vehicles onto the full council for further discussion. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thanks, appreciate it. So next up is the tuition reimbursement update, Rick.
Yes, and I just wanted to, this would be just a quick update. I believe the finance committee recalls that at a council work session in January and February, we're talking about the carryovers and what we anticipate for this year's budget amendments. And part of that was talk about the tuition reimbursement program. And at that meeting, the council was concerned of whether the budget amount, which is $10,000 per year, was enough in the event for professional development. So instead of come back to the full council, I just wanted to touch base with the finance committee to let you know where we are about mid-year. And just as a quick reminder, with the tuition reimbursement program, this is a program we started in 2022. And with the goal of continued education of our workforce so they can achieve their upper level degrees and qualify for work within the city as they advance. Basic criteria of the program is that for tuition requests or for degree programs pursued through accredited colleges and universities. The coursework is relevant to the career path offered within the city. The coursework, it's to fund the tuition, but not the time it takes to do the coursework or books, transportation, lab fees, those type of things, primarily for tuition. And by policy, the maximum amount of tuition reimbursement per person per year is $2,000. And they also would have to, it's a reimbursement program where they have to pay for their tuition, complete the coursework, and achieve a 3.0 or better in that coursework. As of 2022, the March through December, when they instituted this initial program, we've had 6 reimbursement requests from 3 employees for a combined total of $5,847. Basically $975 per request, or just under $2,000 per person. For 2023, again, we budgeted $10,000 for the year, and year to date, we've had 2 requests that have been processed and 1 pending for a combined total of just over $5,000. And we currently have budget funds remaining just at $4,900. So the budget funds remaining would cover 2 additional requests for the max amount per person. So we are on track. We're not looking at exceeding requests to what we have budgeted. But we do have the fall semesters coming up. And we would have an indication, here fairly soon if anybody's interested in applying for that tuition reimbursement. So if we end up having more than two, we'd be able to incorporate that into our budget amendment process in September.
Troy, did you carry over the 2022 money for this?
No, we didn't.
So just so I understand, so if you have enough for two, if a third person were to apply, you'd come back to us? Because I mean, I don't want to see someone not get it because we didn't budget
We
enough.
would come back to the council through the budget amendment process. And part of the process for somebody to apply is they need to give us 30 days advance notice, and they'd have to fill out an application form that they would submit to their supervisor. That would be forwarded to our human resources department, who would review it. But we need at least 30 days notice so that we can give them, before they pay that tuition, give them indication whether it's going to be approved or not.
Okay,
And so that will give us enough notice going into September budget amendment that if we do have more than two requests going into this fall, that we would be able to.
okay. I just want to make sure we're not going to leave someone out if we have more than two, because I think this is a program that we should do for however many people.
Are we doing a pretty good job of promoting this? I mean, do most of our employees know that?
Our HR department does promote it. It's part of our professional development. We are, like I said, we have 3 individuals currently that are just finishing up. One obtained their master's in public administration and just recently. So yeah, it's been a well-worked program.
Awesome.
That by our numbers of FTEs, that puts us at about 1%. Do we have a goal of a percentage goal that we want to try to reach, or are we just kind of?
I'm not aware of one. I'm not aware of a goal that was established with the program. We can take a look at that and see what we can do, establish any type of goals or matrix to try to encourage people to have that continuing education. A lot of times you'll see, especially in the police department, for them to qualify for upper ranks, they would need to have to get their undergrad and secondary degrees. So that is I know promoted throughout in the police department. And again, it just looks at what our job qualifications, what people obtain. People are looking to promote within and they don't meet those minimum qualifications. We definitely encourage them to go after those advanced degrees and provide those resources to them.
I think I would recommend that we look at raising this to like maybe 15,000 for next year, just so we're not in a situation where we might have to come back and do a budget amendment. That should cover it. And then, we can do a check-in, mid-year next year too, and see where we're at.
I agree.
This is a good program. I think it's one of those programs that, the more people use it, the word gets out and so on and so forth.
We may want to look at increasing the max on a per person too, I think.
Yeah,
If $2,000 for tuition doesn't go very far.
no, that's
And I
just,
don't know what credit hours are these days. It's been a while since I've been in
Yeah.
college, but
yeah,
I'm guessing $2,000 doesn't go very far.
not very far at all. So it'd be nice to have a little more.
You have a kid in college now.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you how much that's costing me.
I got my last tuition check 2 months ago.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Woo!
Done.
Okay.
My kids have been out for
Got-
years.
got
so I don't
raised.
know.
Yeah, so that would be nice to get some feedback from the people who've used the program, and if they have any, what do they think? So on and so forth.
And it'd be probably good to get some, like you say, some feedback, what the experience was like, because it is a commitment, because they're doing it not on city time.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they still have their, day work, their responsibilities as well. So it's not
You gotta
an
get a
easy thing to
3.0.
step into.
And
So
3.0 is,
it's a commitment.
that's, yeah.
I support that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you gotta, work for it and
Yeah.
you should be rewarded, so. But yeah, I think we should maybe get some feedback, see if that $2,000 number is the right number and go accordingly, but I think this is good. This does go to the broader question that we've talked about is can we partner with SPSCC wherever and look at this program at a bigger scale? I know we've talked about that,
For St. Martin's, because we're talking advanced degrees, which
Yeah.
you can't do at SPSCC
Yep,
either.
so, anyway, I think there's
Evergreen's a good local fit, and we also have a flexible schedule for classes too, so that helps.
Yeah.
And then you also have your online schools as well.
UW Tacoma with that.
North Tacoma would sure qualify too.
anyway, I think that the broader question, the bigger question about tuition and this community in the city is, I would love to have that at some point, but for this, I think this is a great program. Let's keep it up. Any other discussion? Then let's go on to our budget calendar for 2024. Wow.
You know, it's crazy, right? 24 already we're talking about.
You're telling me.
Just flies by.
Morning committee.
Morning.
Believe it or not, we're a little bit late with starting the budget for next year, so, but yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It is only June, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's going on to July.
We usually start in May,
Yeah.
a little bit slower this year, but. Well, it turns out I'm no better at predicting the future than I have been my entire career.
No one can predict it the way things are these days. Forget about it.
But I mean, the story really hasn't changed and all the updates we've been giving this committee. Inflation is still an issue. Federal Reserve still wants to fight inflation. I think that maybe the one bit of news that's different is the Federal Reserve just met just a week ago.
Yep.
After 10 straight rate increases, they decided not to increase rates, but came out with a strong message that there'll still be rate increases this year. In fact, I think they've indicated there's going to be 2 more rate increases before the end of the year. I think we all have an opinion on that. It's like, why did you pause if you still think there needs to be rate increases?
Pause and flex.
So, but, you know, we're not the Federal Reserves. You know, that's all. What's that?
Maybe we should be.
Well, then we'd be the ones making the wrong decisions and would criticize us. You know, but that's all to say that the Federal Reserve's plan is to slow down the economy. That's definitely going to impact a lot of our revenues if they're successful, and they've indicated they won't stop until they are successful. So I'm going under the assumption that they will be eventually. So it's a matter of when, not if. So, you know, you think about all of our consumption-based taxes, B&O tax, sales tax especially. But, you know, really everything we do from a local standpoint is potentially going to be impacted by that. So we're definitely keeping that in mind. You know, I just sent out the sales tax report here over the weekend. I'll say it's still good news, but there's definitely signs of slowdown in the future. General merchandise and overall general retail sales is actually down. I think if you look at all retail categories, it's down 2.3% for the year so far.
But with inflation, I think that's really far worse than it sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, because of the inflation rate, you know, at whatever we're at now, what are we at 6 something now still?
Yeah, so it was 6.9
So that
locally.
2% down, but on 6% higher pricing means we're really selling a lot less.
Right, assuming that all prices went up by that same amount, you're right, the
Yeah, I
volume
mean, yeah.
gone down.
And that's tough to tell how much
Yeah,
inflation
yeah.
was passed on, but yeah.
But you know, some of it is. I mean, they have to. Right? So,
Well, we've all felt it.
sure.
If you've done any shopping in the last 2 years,
Absolutely.
you've definitely seen it and felt it yourself. Construction is still strong. You know, that's kind of been up and down this year so far, as you know, but we're, you know, right now in a trend of increasing sales tax in there. Restaurants is another one we're watching pretty closely. We had our first decline in a long time. If you think about just the nature of that business and the impacts that the pandemic safety restrictions had on that business line, had a huge recovery over the last 2 years, and we're finally now comparing apples to apples. So 2023, we're comparing to peak restaurant volumes of the summer of 2022. So that makes sense. So it's not necessarily bad news that, you know, that growth has stopped. But, you know, we'll definitely be watching in terms of the future. Eating out is very much a discretionary activity. So that will be I think a first indicator of what the economy is really going to be faced with here in the near future. But that's all to say, we're going to be very cautious as we look at 2024's budget revenues. On the expenditure side, we do have pretty big increases, and you saw from the first quarter financial report, you know, the majority of that is labor. A lot of that has to do with one-time retro pay for 2 significant labor contracts that were settled right at the end of the year, which meant that retro pay didn't happen until this year. So again, we don't have an apples to apples comparison, as well as we have roughly 10% increases in COLAs over the
these 2 years, 2022, 23. So that's also causing that comparison to be off a bit. But that's all to say that we have significant increases in salaries and benefits, but it is within budget. We knew it was going to happen. So in terms of what we adopted in our balanced budget, there's no concern there. I do want to, remind the council that, we're going to have a significant investment in the police station next year. We're going to be using 43 million or so in reserves. And that with a combination of ARPA dollars, that's a lot of cash over the 2024, 2025 calendar years. We obviously have it, and that's a good thing, and we should celebrate that. But taking that money out of reserves is going to reduce our flexibility in the future. So it's just something to be mindful as we move forward. Another item for the committee and council to think about is we'll be coming to council with a capital facilities plan. It's kind of a long time coming, looking at our physical structures and planning for that. But that's another significant investment if the council chooses to go that route, somewhere in the $100 million range over the next 15 years. So that's something, you and the rest of the council will be considering, whether we adopt a plan of that significance and how we're going to fund something like that. But again, it's probably going to be a combination of reserves and debt. So again, future flexibility will be diminished looking forward.
I can just, reinforce the capital facilities plan is just for general public facilities like the shop, animal services, renovating City Hall, not all the other capital improvements as well. So with that following the capital facilities plan, we want to be putting together a capital improvement program that identifies all those different projects, capital wise and funding, and try to set up a financial strategy for the next 15 years. Sure.
So, in summary, again, we're going to be taking a very cautious approach. We want to keep in mind, long-term sustainability of any sort of growth to ongoing operations for the city. So, our message to staff is exactly that. Let's look at these requests as we look forward, make sure that we do have the ability to sustain those expanded budgets potentially with ongoing revenues. The good news is that, if we have a pause in 2024, it's kind of the same message we had last year. We're still having supply chain issues. In fact, if you ask my friends at Public Works, I don't think we've had a single project that hasn't been delayed because of supply chain issues. So any sort of, thought in terms of, cautious approach to the 2024 budget just gives staff a chance to catch up on all of those projects. It's really happening everywhere in the city still. It's incredible to think about that.
It's not just the city, it's everywhere.
Right.
We can't get ambulances, we can't get paramedic vehicles, they're on hold for, I think we're 18 months behind on our last one that we're supposed to receive.
Yeah, it's everywhere. We just heard a couple pickup truck orders were canceled that we ordered last year. So it's just,
only got those.
So that's 2 years in a row now?
yeah, it is. And we're looking at already placing
for next year.
right. I was just having a conversation with Rick. We're looking at
Paramedics
next year.
picking people up in their own cars.
Yeah, I don't know if they're doing that because they're charging over MSRP, and since they're in our set price, that they don't necessarily sell them to the.
Well, we've had orders canceled and then orders reopened at a higher price. So they've adjusted for that.
There's been an interesting market on just.
Cancel it,
There's
reorder it.
been an interesting market on just our purchases and with supply chains where people are buying it MRS and then reselling right away within a couple of weeks at higher prices. And it's been a weird shadow market.
Oh, for sure. My daughter's car is 3 years old. She was offered more for it today than she paid for it 3 years ago.
Wow.
So on the police station, I know in
That's
that meeting,
crazy.
we discussed the possibility of, supply chain issues or whatever the case may be. And we have a contingency reserve, I think it was 5%. Or, I don't know, I guess, as we talk about supply chain issues, the concern becomes the delay of that project. in any
And the
capacity.
cost of that delay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up just real quick.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the timing of that project when you have, anytime you have debt money in there, there's arbitrage rebate in there, which is an IRS issue. We can't borrow money and earn more interest on that money than what we paid in interest. So we're really gonna have to finesse all of that in terms of committing ARPA dollars and getting those spent timely as well as any debt proceeds. So it's gonna be an effort.
Have we, on the ARPA dollars, I know it's been kind of scary lately about the federal government wanting to take those back. Have we obligated those yet?
Not yet technically, so obligating the funds will be, the definition is under contract essentially. So once we're gonna go to bid end of this year, probably award early next year, so that will be when they will technically be obligated. But we do have some flexibility within how we spend those ARPA dollars, so we did commit those dollars under the revenue recovery, which gives us a wide range of eligible expenditures. So basically, any general government service is eligible. We can apply those dollars to any.
So we can always move money around if we need
So
to
we
make
could,
sure we
so-
don't get any clawback on
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think it's been the recommendation for a while is to obligate those dollars as soon as possible. Could you imagine if we lost that money?
We won't let that happen.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, we were ready. It was,
We were watching it very closely, and then we got the clarification on what that meant in terms of the negotiations at the federal level, so.
that one, of course, came down right to the wire with the debt ceiling discussion, so.
The Commerce gave us an extension for the ag park down in Tenino.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was, the dollars are supposed to be spent by June 30, and we went to Commerce and said, hey, can we get an extension to extend it to the end of the year? Which was kind of cool. I don't know if the Fed does that, but
I don't anticipate this on the ARPA dollar package. They're looking at them be obligated. If they're not obligated, they'll pull them back.
they want them back if they want.
Yeah, that could happen in the debt discussion. Everyone's like, okay, is there any other questions about the calendar?
Yeah, one point, Mr. Mayor, on this happens just about every year, but I'll point it out again. The NLC City Summit Conference runs at the same time as a lot of our hearings in November. So it's that second meeting in November. It's November 16th. If we have a number of council members there, we'd hope that council members will remote in to get a quorum to get property tax levy adopted as well as utility rates. And we're conducting a budget hearing that night as well. So just kind of a heads up on that, or we could have a special meeting the week before, but.
I think right now, we only have one council member who says they're gonna go. Yeah, I'm not gonna go to NLC in the fall. So I'll just.
It is in Atlanta, so that would be a 9 o'clock council meeting, so
Yeah.
there's that consideration too.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? I know the past couple of years, and I've been talking about this for a while, is that we were gonna do some city budget one-on-one stuff for the public to come and better understand property taxes and all that. Can we get that set up again for this year and maybe do some, do what we can? I just think the more we talk about budgeting and it's just so different from what every other budget is like from the private sector, which is all people know, right? And so it's just so complicated that I think the more information we push out and talk about, this is how we do it, the better off we are. So it'd be great if we could fit that in to this
You're thinking about
budget.
like as an in-person forum, or we do
Well,
like
no,
some short
it's-
video
So,
series?
yeah, in years past, we've, brought in the, assessor and the treasurer, and they've talked a little bit about property taxes, which is the big one that a lot of people don't, have information about, and just a overall some, budget workshop for the public type.
We do them as Zoom meetings, as I recall. Last time.
We've done them over Zoom meetings, and, I think that works okay, but I'd like to continue to do more of that.
Maybe Troy and I can circle and figure out how we can coordinate that and reach out to Andrew and Jeff Gavin and see what they can, what their interest is.
They've been happy to participate in the past, so I just think the more we talk about, even for some of our own council members, the more they are reminded of this stuff, the better.
It's true, because people do not understand it, and I get why. I mean, I certainly didn't when I first, got elected, because, I've run businesses, but a business budget is
So different.
completely different than the way government budgets work. Just it's night and day.
It'd be nice too, if we can do like 3-minute short videos too, so it's not just attend this one meeting, even though we have it recorded on Zoom and all, but there's, it could be 60 minutes long, but we can try to do some basic stuff on the
Yeah.
budget,
It's great.
property tax, how it
Yeah.
all works, and work with the
Say push that stuff out to social media, and blah, 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 blah. I just think we need to get on that schedule every year where it's budget time, understand your city budget, push out information.
And we could highlight some of the AWC videos as well. My former boss in Pullman is a much better speaker than I am, and he's done some really good little
Short stuff.
5-minute videos on.
I don't know, we've seen you, you're better than you think you are. We saw you at Scott's going away, and that was pretty impressive.
I don't think you want those kind of videos.
Those weren't recorded.
Well, yeah, so there's something to think about, but I know everything takes planning, and we've talked about this in years past, and all of a sudden we're budget time, we're like, so.
Yeah.
It is, and we want to try to get as much information out to the public, and, you say, talk about property tax, that's probably the most confusing
Oh, for
pieces,
sure.
because how that all gets calculated out, and, but also too, as we're going through this budget push, there's a lot of work going on, so trying to figure out how we can pull the resources together to get a message out that's succinct
Yeah.
and meaningful.
I think, videoing it is probably the way to go. So you're putting some upfront work in, and then we can sort of update it and push it out every year. It's just one of those things that,
And once it's done, we shouldn't have to recreate it every year.
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
It's- Same videos can go out. I mean, things don't change that much. The process doesn't change.
Yeah.
The numbers change, but the process doesn't.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. As always, with that, we've reached the end of our agenda, so without objection, I'll call this meeting adjourned.